Silence isn't weakness. It's one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Most people think when a man goes quiet, it means he's lost interest, he's confused, or he doesn't care anymore. But real silence, the kind that comes from a place of self-control, confidence, and emotional maturity, is a powerful move. It's not about ignoring someone or trying to manipulate them. It's about stepping back to protect your peace, to regain clarity, and to allow space for energy to shift naturally. When you go quiet for the right reasons, it changes the dynamic completely. When someone pulls away or starts acting distant, most people react emotionally. They chase, they overtext, they try to fix things instantly. That reaction only pushes the other person further away. But when you choose silence, you communicate something stronger than words ever could. You're saying, "I'm not here to convince anyone of my value." That calm confidence forces the other person to notice your absence. Because energy doesn't lie when your attention disappears, people feel it. Silence becomes a mirror, and it reflects your inner strength. It's important to understand silence is not about ego, it's about control. You're controlling what you give your focus to. When you stop feeding energy into drama, confusion, or mixed signals, you reclaim your power. You're no longer reacting to someone else's emotional storms. You're choosing peace, and peace is attractive. People are drawn to those who can stay calm when everything around them feels uncertain. That calm silence can make someone who took you for granted start wondering, "Did I lose something real?" That's when curiosity turns into reflection, and reflection turns into longing. But here's the thing, silence only works when it's genuine. If you're sitting there counting the hours, waiting for her to text, checking her social media, and pretending to be strong, that's not silence. It's noise disguised as patience. Real silence comes from acceptance. It comes from knowing that whatever happens, you'll be fine. It's letting go of control over the outcome and trusting that what's meant for you won't require chasing. When you use silence correctly, you give both yourself and the other person space to breathe. You create an emotional gap where realization can grow. Sometimes that realization brings people back, and sometimes it sets you free. Either way, you win. Because your silence gave you perspective, it taught you what's worth your energy and what's not. You become grounded, unshaken, and focused on yourself. And that shift, the move from reacting to observing, builds a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any argument could. So, don't be afraid of silence. Don't rush to fill the space. Let it do the talking for you. The right kind of silence doesn't push people away. It pulls the right ones closer. Emotional control is what separates men who chase from men who attract. When you go silent, the real power behind that silence isn't just the absence of words. It's the presence of control. It's how you manage your emotions when you feel the urge to react, because in relationships, the one who stays calm holds the energy. The moment you stop needing someone's attention to feel whole, everything starts shifting in your favor. People can sense when your emotions are stable, when your happiness doesn't depend on whether they text back or not. That's the quiet confidence that makes silence magnetic. When you're emotionally centered, you don't respond out of fear or anxiety. You don't try to fix things that don't need fixing. You understand that attraction isn't built through overcommunication or constant reassurance. It's built through presence, certainty, and balance. When she feels that your world doesn't fall apart without her, it challenges her perspective. It makes her curious. Because now, you're not the same man who used to react to every mood swing or emotional distance. You're grounded, focused, and calm, and that energy is rare. The truth is, emotional control isn't about pretending not to care. It's about caring in a way that doesn't cost you your peace. It's about knowing when to step back instead of forcing a connection that's fading. Every time you hold back from sending that emotional text, every time you resist explaining yourself just to be understood, you're strengthening your self-respect. And that self-respect is what reignites attraction. Because the moment you show you can walk away with peace, you become unpredictable. You're no longer driven by emotion, you're guided by purpose. Women feel energy more than words. When you shift from desperation to discipline, from reacting to reflecting, she feels that. It's not about making her miss you. It's about reminding her that you're not controlled by her attention. You're not her emotional puppet. You're a man who knows his worth, who can feel deeply without losing control of himself. And that combination, strength with calmness, is the most attractive energy a man can carry. It's also the foundation for growth. Emotional control teaches you patience, self-awareness, and timing. You stop living in reaction mode and start living with intention. Instead of trying to change her, you focus on mastering yourself. You start using silence not as withdrawal, but as self-protection. You realize that you can love someone and still choose distance if peace demands it. That's maturity. That's what makes your silence powerful, not because it hurts her, but because it heals you. So, when you choose silence, let it come from peace, not pain. Let it reflect your emotional control, not your frustration. Because the moment you master your emotions, you no longer chase validation. You attract respect. And that's when silence stops being absence and starts becoming influence. Time apart is one of life's most honest teachers. When you step back and allow space between you and someone you care about, the truth begins to surface. Distance has a way of stripping away illusions. It shows you what's real and what was just comfort. When you're not around, when your voice isn't filling her phone, when your energy isn't there every day, she begins to notice what that silence feels like. And in that quiet, she starts to realize whether she truly values your presence or simply got used to your attention. Most people are terrified of distance because they associate it with loss. But real strength comes from understanding that distance doesn't always destroy. It often reveals. When someone genuinely cares about you, silence becomes loud for them. They start to notice the absence of your energy, the stability you brought, the comfort they didn't appreciate. That's when curiosity starts turning into reflection. She begins to ask herself questions. Why hasn't he reached out? Has he moved on? Did I push him too far? Those thoughts don't come from manipulation. They come naturally when someone feels the loss of your energy. But there's another side to this truth. Sometimes when you go silent, you find out they don't come back. They don't check in. They don't notice. And as painful as that realization can be, it's actually freedom. Because silence doesn't only test her feelings, it also exposes the reality of your connection. If she doesn't care enough to reach out, then your distance saved you time, energy, and heartbreak. You learned the truth without chasing it. That's the quiet reward of silence. It gives you answers without confrontation. Distance also gives you something else: perspective. When emotions settle and time passes, you start to see things more clearly. You recognize patterns that were hidden when you were emotionally involved. You realize what you tolerated, what you gave too easily, and what you need to change for yourself. This clarity doesn't come from talking, it comes from being still. That's why space is so valuable. It doesn't just make the other person miss you. It helps you remember who you are. And sometimes when you both grow in that space, something powerful happens. She may return, not because she's lonely, but because she's realized your worth. And when that happens, it's not your words that brought her back. It's the respect she feels for your silence, your composure, and your emotional strength. You showed her that you're not afraid to walk away when peace requires it. That's why silence is never about manipulation. It's about revelation. It brings truth to the surface without arguments, without pressure, without games. When someone truly values you, time apart won't erase their feelings. It will magnify them. And when they don't, that silence will set you free to find someone who will. Silence only has power when it comes from authenticity, not ego. Too many people use silence as a weapon to punish, to manipulate, to make the other person feel guilty or anxious. But when silence is used like that, it loses its value. It becomes toxic, not transformative. True silence isn't about proving a point. It's about protecting your peace. It's not about showing someone what they lost. It's about reminding yourself what you deserve. The difference lies in your intention. When your silence comes from pain or pride, it creates distance without growth. But when it comes from maturity, it builds respect, both from others and from yourself. You can't use silence as a tool to get a reaction. That's still emotional dependency, just disguised differently. You might think staying quiet will make her chase you, text you, or miss you. But if that's your goal, then your silence isn't real. It's still controlled by her actions. The real purpose of silence is to detach from outcomes, to stop being driven by what she does or doesn't do. It's about reclaiming control over your emotions and actions. When you're genuinely focused on healing, improving, and rebuilding your energy, your silence naturally carries strength. It's not forced. It's calm, confident, and peaceful. When you go silent for the right reasons, you shift your focus from her to yourself. You stop overanalyzing her behavior and start observing your own. You begin to ask, what do I need to feel centered again? What areas of my life have I been neglecting while chasing connection? That's when silence turns into self-discovery. You might start hitting the gym more, reading, working on your mindset, or surrounding yourself with people who bring you peace. That's the energy shift she feels, not manipulation, but growth. And when she feels that shift, it's powerful. Because energy doesn't lie. When you're silent out of peace, not anger, the energy you project becomes magnetic. She starts to wonder what changed in you, why you seem calmer, happier, and more in control. That curiosity draws her attention not because you forced her to notice, but because silence built your value in her eyes. But even if she never reaches out, you still win, because your silence wasn't about getting her back. It was about getting you back. Silence should never come from resentment. It should come from self-respect. The moment you try to use it to make someone feel bad, you've already given your power away. Real power is being able to walk away without bitterness. It's knowing that peace isn't something someone gives you. It's something you choose. And when your silence carries that kind of strength, it doesn't punish anyone. It simply protects you. That's the kind of silence that can't be ignored, because it doesn't come from weakness. It comes from wisdom. When the silence finally breaks and she reaches out, what you do next determines everything. Many people think silence alone will fix things, but it's not the absence of words that matters, it's the comeback. How you handle that moment reflects your growth. If she calls or texts after a long time and you immediately flood her with emotions, you undo the strength your silence built. The goal isn't to rush into conversation or demand explanations. The goal is to respond with calmness, confidence, and self-respect. You are not the same person who was overthinking and waiting. You're someone who has found balance. That's what she needs to feel from you. Steadiness. When you re-engage, speak less, listen more. Let your energy do the talking. The way you carry yourself, the tone of your voice, the rhythm of your words. All of it should show that you've grown. Don't remind her of the past. Don't replay old emotions. Let her see that your silence wasn't about ignoring her. It was about improving yourself. That's what makes your presence more attractive. When she senses that you're genuinely content and not seeking validation, she'll feel the difference immediately. It's not about making her miss you anymore. It's about showing through your peace that you've evolved. You also have to remember, silence isn't an end game. It's preparation. It gives you time to gain clarity, so when the chance comes to reconnect, you don't react from old wounds. You know your worth now. You're not chasing closure. You're offering conversation only if it aligns with your peace. This is where emotional maturity shows. You're not coming back to prove anything. You're coming back with grounded energy. That calm, collected demeanor is what reignites respect and attraction. People are drawn to those who don't need to prove their value because it radiates naturally. If she asks why you went quiet, don't justify it emotionally. You don't owe a dramatic explanation. A simple, confident response like, "I just needed some time to focus on myself," is enough. You're not explaining, you're stating. You're showing boundaries without defensiveness. That's how respect grows. Silence gave you space, but your composure now keeps it. You're no longer chasing the same energy. You're matching it. And if she still seems unsure, you don't force anything. You simply stay calm and consistent. Because the man who can control his emotions can control the outcome. Your silence might have made her curious, but your comeback is what makes her respect you. It's not about how long you disappeared. It's about what you did during that time. Did you grow, or did you just wait? The answer to that question defines how she feels when she sees you again. So when you finally speak, speak with purpose, not pressure. Let your presence show that you've changed, and let your calm energy remind her why she noticed your absence in the first place. Because silence earns attention, but composure earns respect. At the heart of all this isn't really about whether she misses you. It's about whether you've remembered yourself. Too many men focus entirely on trying to evoke emotion from someone else, hoping their absence will spark longing. But the real transformation happens when you stop chasing her attention and start reclaiming your own energy. When you reconnect with who you are, your purpose, and your peace, everything else naturally falls into place. The need for validation disappears because you've realized that your worth isn't dependent on anyone else noticing it. This shift is what makes silence and distance so powerful, not as tools to control someone else, but as mirrors that reflect your inner strength. When you stop obsessing over whether she notices your absence, you gain clarity. You see the relationship or the connection as it truly is. You start asking yourself questions like, am I being valued the way I deserve? Am I giving too much of my energy to someone who doesn't respect it? That self-reflection isn't about blame. It's about understanding your own standards and boundaries. It's about realizing that the energy you expend is precious, and only those who truly value it should receive it. This mindset alone changes how you show up in relationships. You become selective, focused, and intentional with your attention. The process of reconnecting with yourself also allows you to rebuild confidence and presence. You start living for yourself, pursuing your passions, and stepping into your growth. That energy, quiet, confident, and self-contained, is far more magnetic than chasing attention. When someone sees a man who's thriving, independent, and grounded, their curiosity and respect are naturally drawn to him. This isn't manipulation. It's the natural consequence of self-mastery. Your absence matters not because you're creating longing, but because you're no longer centered on external approval. This journey also teaches patience and timing. You learn that relationships, attraction, and emotional bonds cannot be rushed or forced. When you're in tune with yourself, you understand that everything unfolds in its own rhythm. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding deliberately. You stop filling silence with words that don't serve you, and instead let your energy speak for you. You realize that the right people will respect your space, appreciate your presence, and value the man you've chosen to become. Ultimately, the question isn't whether she misses you, it's whether you've regained your power, your peace, and your sense of self. When you focus on being the man you want to be, instead of the man you think she wants, you create an energy that's irresistible. People feel it without explanation. Attraction isn't built through games or manipulation. It's built through presence, confidence, and self-respect. When you remember yourself first, everything else falls into perspective naturally.